When it comes to watching this anime, its audience sided into two groups. The first one thought that a reboot means a modernized version of the original, so they compared it to the original adventure series. The others restrained from any comparison because they considered it a different anime. I think both sides are valid. It is unfair for a new series to be compared to the original because it is a work on its own, and keeping everything the same and just repeating it would be pointless. But also, despite the adventure reboot being aimed at younger audiences, the reality was that it was mostly watched by old fans, so we have to understand that comparing things and glorifying the past is just our human nature. A reboot, by definition, is a new start in an established fictional universe that shifts continuity in order to create its own characters, plotlines, and backstory. There have been a lot of reboots happening in all genres in the past few years. When it comes to Digimon, their designs, evolution lines, and human characters are all well established and known, so using those same characters to tell a different story definitely is challenging. While at times this anime acted like you had to have watched the original adventure to understand it, for the sake of keeping this highs and lows discussion credible, this video will not compare the reboot with the original. As I said, Digimon franchise already has an established setting, and this series definitely achieved a high mark in showcasing the digital world. Every Digimon season has one thing in common: we can't wait for the main characters to visit the digital world. This is not only because the digital world is where our favorite Digimon live. Like Hogwarts for Harry Potter fans and Middle-earth for Lord of the Rings fans, the digital world is our safe place where we go to escape our everyday mundane life. Also, the digital world is simply the place where all the fun happens. The 2020 adventure reboot really let us indulge in the scenery. By watching the episodes, we got to travel with the main characters and visit every corner of the digital world. We went to the beach, the city, the Arctic parts, the woods, visited ancient ruins, saw construction sites, marveled at the vast beauty of the skies. Wherever landscape you could have imagined existed in the digital world, this season took us there. But that's not the only thing that we saw that made us happy. In those different parts of the digital world, we saw so many different Digimon that it would be hard to name them all. Even the very first step into the digital world was a glimpse into all the diversity we were about to see. Someone could wonder though, was this pretty and flashy setting enough to make up for the lack of character development? Character development is close to non-existent in this season. First of all, one character was pushed into every scene, even when he had nothing to do with the plotline, to the point that it looked like a parody. You know I'm talking about Taichi. The second issue is that he didn't have a journey where one could say how he grew with time. Actually, this could be said for every character in this anime. They behave the same way from episode 1 to episode 67. They just go through predefined motions, without any doubts or questioning why things are how they are, and no inner turmoil. This series was made for new kids who, like us, are supposed to love this and become hardcore fans. And to do so, they have to identify themselves with a certain character. But how can they do that if there is no depth to these characters? Every character in this anime was like a white wall. Just a single gold star sticker on it would have made a lot of difference. The chosen children go about congratulating themselves on their victories when Digimon did all the work. Actually, I will go as far as to say that Digimon had more character development this season than their human partners. I remember reading a comment online midway through the season that said how these characters are the best representation of their crests. But they went through almost the entire season defeating enemies without even knowing anything about them. The crests did not represent traits of their owners, because by the end, the children all behaved the same, with of course Taichi having the traits of all the crests. So what was the point of the others having crests at all? In the end, the only traits the children had were hope and courage. They never questioned their love, friendship, sincerity. They never got into arguments with one another. They never missed their parents. These human emotions are so relevant to children. They failed to show that people get into arguments, even close friends, and that's fine. It is also fine to question yourself and your feelings, to not be okay sometimes, to be confused and go through inner ups and downs, and it's more than okay to have friends that go through all of this with you, because every relationship is a journey and an adventure, just like what the series was supposed to be all about, right? Another thing I enjoyed this season is the music and soundtrack. Digimon can definitely take pride in its music department, since some songs are being listened to even 25 years after their release. In the age of streaming services, TV shows have mostly removed intros for easier binge watching, but anime still want to show off in the opening and closing credits. Many fans were disappointed when they heard that the reboot didn't use Butterfly or Braveheart songs, but I think this anime was aiming to create its own identity. This is not the original adventure, and it shouldn't try to be. This season had a catchy opening and evolution songs that made you look forward to the fight scenes coming ahead, but also a recognizable melody that was composed for different situations, whether it's action or drama or an emotional scene. While the series had a colorful way to represent evolution, it had some pretty random evolutions. While it has been stated that a Digimon's habitat and growing up plays a part in their evolution, there were some evolutions this season that left much to be desired. For example, there was one episode where Agumon, who was close to electricity, evolved into Blitz Greymon, never to show up again, disappointing his fans. A similar thing happened to Gabumon and Crest Garurumon. This was all done to prepare us for Omegamon Alter S, who, just like them, only showed up for a brief amount of time. On the other hand, the regular Omegamon was introduced already in the third episode, making fans wonder what's the rush and why are they playing one of their strongest cards so early. Also, Metal Garurumon's first appearance was turned into a filler racing episode instead of making him shine. Even though he has excellent speed, he has other qualities that were just not shown in the episode. We didn't even get to see Gabumon evolve into Garurumon the first time, he just showed up. Crest Garurumon got one entire episode, never to show up again. While I said I will not compare the original adventure with the reboot, it is pretty obvious that young generations are not likely to watch something from the 90s or early 2000s, no matter how good and iconic it was. They consume the content that is popular right now. The only way to bring all the goodies to new generations is through reboots. We, who grew up with Digimon, will forever cherish what this franchise meant for us in those crucial years of growing up. So I definitely applaud this series' effort in trying to appeal to new generations. Adventure is still Digimon's most successful release, with yet another movie in the works, so rebooting the most popular series seems like a good way to bring in some new crowds, but also give older fans new content and some Easter eggs here and there. However, the story, which is the crucial aspect of every anime, was not strong enough to entertain old fans, let alone attract new ones. So, with all due respect to the franchise and the writers who brought us so many joyful moments, this felt like a basic story. It had a mysterious beginning that pulled you in and made you want to know more about the ancient battle between good and evil and why it feels like it's happening all over again. We wondered who was behind this evil plan to bring down life as we know it. We even got to see some flashbacks, which only added extra points to the backstory. But most of all, with time, we found out that one of the most talked about villains is going to come back eventually, and the chosen kids, who just happen to be there, will get to battle Zed Millenniummon. The most important thing about Zed Millenniummon we knew so far was that he was a truly great force of evil with time-traveling powers. When he showed up, we were already more than halfway through the season, and the much anticipated battle was over sooner than it began. For me, that was a very exciting episode, because we got to see some important Digimon like Godramon and Holydramon, but their beautiful designs were not represented in the best way through animation. This was also my favorite episode in the season, but it was a culmination of a much anticipated plotline, so I think it would have been better if they saved it for the season finale. The final battle was trying its best to be dark, but it didn't bring the same feeling like the previous villain or some other iconic Digimon villains. Generally, the story was like that of an action movie, where the main focus is the action. Imagine how much more that action could have shined if it was delivered after a long anticipation and with a strong message. Now for some unbiased stats. Judging by the score of 6.4, this season was not exactly welcomed with open arms by most anime fans. There were also some very negative reviews, calling it the worst anime of 2020 and a bad choice for younger audiences' first experience of Digimon. But if you feel like the anime showed you something worth watching, the score and other people's opinions don't really matter. Sometime halfway through the season, I ran a poll on my community page where I asked you how did you like it so far, and most of you said you liked it. If you want to participate in these polls and discussions, make sure to subscribe to the channel and they will show up in your mobile feed. Now that the season is over, what is your final verdict? Share your opinions in the comments below. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please consider supporting me on Patreon. The link is in the description below. Stay tuned for more Digimon videos. Peace. P.S. Make sure to follow my community page on YouTube, as I also post updates about upcoming videos there.